Over the next series of videos, we're going to be looking at the Nazis in power, how they affected the lives of various people within Germany. And in order for you to understand this period of the Nazi regime, it's helpful to know something about the lives and careers of 4 prominent Nazis. So if you're a GCSE student, you should make notes on the following 4 figures. That is Joseph Goebbels, Hermann Goring, Heinrich Himmler, and Reinhard Heydrich. Don't worry about the spellings, you're going to get them in a minute. So Joseph Goebbels, obviously notice he dies in 1945, I wonder why that is. Born with a club foot, so didn't serve in World War I, and again something against those Nazi ideals of an Aryan Superman. He actually studied history and literature at university. He actually got a doctorate in it. He was a very good student apparently. Joined the Nazi Party in 1922, the year before the Munich Putsch, and became a key figure in the Third Reich as Reich Minister of Enlightenment and Propaganda for the entire time the Third Reich was in power. And he was a very able propagandist with control over all of the media and arts. The main aim being to mobilize Germans behind Hitler and the Nazi regime. Let's have a look at some things that he did. Brilliant speaker, radio broadcasts to every German home. In fact, he sort of replaced Hitler in that role from about 1941, 1942 as the war started to go badly. Propaganda, very important in the war years, to preparing Germans for huge sacrifices. This idea of total war, even though the war's going badly, they're mobilizing Germans in the war effort. Even though Germany was losing the war, and it was obvious Germany was going to lose the war, he actually remained loyal to Hitler at the end, committing suicide with him in the bunker on the 1st of May 1945, after killing his children, his wife and Goebbels killed themselves in the bunker. So let's have a look at the Reich Ministry of Propaganda, of which he was in charge, and see the sort of many tentacles reaching out of control. So control of the radio, that was the sort of television or internet of its day, I suppose, so all content would have to be censored and vetted. The news, again, some of that would be broadcast on the radio, and there were also short films played before movies in the cinema. It was illegal to listen to channels such as the BBC. Later on, the punishment for that was death. Filmmaking, so films would have to be passed by the Reich Ministry of Propaganda Censor, and they were actually actively involved in making their own movies, even rather famously a movie about Frederick the Great, in which troops were conscripted away from the Eastern Front to play extras. That's a gig I would have certainly have gone for if I was on the Eastern Front. Also, literature, again, had to be approved. Non-German, in inverted commas, authors, especially Jews, their works were banned and publicly burned. The visual arts, they were very old-fashioned in their views towards the visual arts. They liked strictly representational art, hated modern art, which they regarded as degenerate. Music, again, approved music composers would be people like Wagner, sort of the more sort of stuffy end of the classical music. Didn't like, for example, American jazz, which they regarded as, I don't know how to say the word, music, I think you know what I mean. I wonder what they would have made of hip-hop. Anyway, also theatre as well. So many branches of mass media and culture, both censored, and the Nazis are producing their own content now as well. Let's move on to Hermann Goring, another key figure in the Nazi regime. Note again the year of his death. So he does join the army in 1914 as an infantry lieutenant, actually transferred to an Air Force combat pilot role, in which he does very, very well. He's an ace pilot and wins the Iron Cross and something known as the Blue Max. He's very proud of that. Meets Hitler in 1922. Very useful for Hitler because he's got more aristocratic connections for the Nazi Party. He's actually head of the SA, the brown shirts, until the Munich Putsch in 1923. He's actually injured in the Munich Putsch. He actually manages to get away and escapes abroad. In 1927, when the dust has settled and the Nazi Party has been sort of unbanned, I'm not sure when it's legalised again, He rejoins the Nazi Party, and he's actually elected to the Reichstag as a member of one of those 12 members of parliament in 1928. In 1933, a very key role. If you remember the video in which we explore how Hitler transforms from Chancellor to dictator, well, there were only 3 Nazis in the cabinet of January 1933, but Goering held the post of Prussian Minister of the Interior. He played a key role in the seizure of power because he was in charge of the Prussian state police. Moving on, he also acted ruthlessly against Röhm and the SA in the Night of the Long Knives in June of 1934. Here you can see him highlighted in a political cartoon by the cartoonist Lowe. In 1935, I don't know why I didn't bold that, I should have done, becomes head of the German Air Force, Luftwaffe. And in 1936, very, very key role. Oh, by the way, that's a picture of him in his regalia. Rather, he was an intelligent man, undeniably, but also very vain. He loved uniforms, as this stylish portrait suggests. In 1936, he becomes in charge of another very significant role, so not only the Luftwaffe of the 4-year plan. The aim of that, if you remember, is to achieve autarky, economic self-sufficiency. And to prepare Germany for war, reduce its dependence on imports and prepare Germany for war. Now then, after sort of the period of 1940, 1941, failures of the Luftwaffe reduce his prestige and standing in the regime. They fail in the Battle of Britain to defeat the RAF, and also fail to relieve soldiers in the Battle of Stalingrad. Let's have a look now at his decline and fall. So, ever since 1923, since he was wounded in the putsch, he'd been addicted to morphine. And this addiction really took a toll on his health. He gained a lot of weight and had violent mood swings. By 1945, he'd lost all influence, is captured by the Allies, and he's put in prison in preparation for the Nuremberg trials. He takes poison in 1946, just before he's due to be executed, and kills himself. Let's have a look at another key figure, the sinister figure of Heinrich Himmler. Again, 1945, the year of his death. Actually began his life as a chicken farmer, so sort of inauspicious beginnings for the future feared head of the SS. Although it does inform his thinking, this idea. He was a farmer, and this idea of blood and soil, the tie of the German people to their land, is a big part of Nazi thinking. Very obsessed with detail and accuracy. It's very clerical, likes to record things, and during the Holocaust, he was very keen to maintain the statistics of the numbers of murdered Jews. So again, key figures timeline-wise, again took part in the Munich Putsch 1923, you should make a note of that if you're a GCSE student. 1929, head of the SS, something which began as Hitler's personal bodyguard, but branched out to have many divisions. It became in charge of the death camps. There were army units known as the Waffen-SS, the Gestapo, the secret police was part of the SS. In 1934, together with Goering, he persuades Hitler to eliminate Röhm in the Night of the Long Knives, so another key development there. Part of forming the policy, he's one of the racial elite. He's very heavily involved in killing Jews in the sort of so-called final solution, in setting up the death camps for the final solution. So a key and a rather odious figure in the Nazi regime, arrested and took his own life, again with poison, in 1945. Last figure, Reinhard Heydrich. This guy actually dies before 1945, and you'll see why. So he's actually Himmler's subordinate. He's a very senior figure in the Nazi Party, in the SS, and the Gestapo under Himmler, and realises many of Himmler's plans. And Himmler himself is trying to fulfill Hitler's vision. So Hitler's vision is filtering down through Himmler to Heydrich. His looks were Aryan German. That was possibly a mistake here, actually. I read more about this. There's some rumours that he had Jewish ancestry and he was trying to hide it. Other figures made fun of him. It's unclear. It just highlights the stupidity, really, of these sort of racist theories, I guess. Joined the Nazis in 1927 as Chief of Security Services, running a network of spies and informers. So he ran the Gestapo, the Geheimstaatspolizei. Again, apologies if you're German and I mispronounced that horrendously. So he ran the secret police, and he was foremost. He chaired the Wannsee Conference, which organised the so-called final solution to the Jewish problem. That is, taking all of the Jews in Eastern Europe and all of Nazi-occupied Europe to concentration camps, where they would be sorted into either labour camps or scheduled for gassing and burning. He was assassinated in 1942 by some Czech freedom fighters. So goodbye, Reinhard Heydrich. I hope you made some notes on these key figures. They were, of course, Goebbels, very important in terms of propaganda. Goring, very key figure right throughout, from the Munich Putsch through to being head of the Luftwaffe and the 4-year plan. Himmler, sinister head of the SS, so overseeing, of course, Heydrich in his role as fulfilling that final solution. So I hope you made some notes on that, and thank you for watching.